Librarian and Instructional Technologist at Washburn University School of Law. My job at Washburn is to maintain the classrooms and courtroom and to help the instructors with any technology needs, as well as doing all the video recording.
Hi. And yeah, just to continue following along, my name is Michael Destries. I work at Cornell Law School as the Educational Technologies Director. I like to move around, so sorry. Anyways, my role, very similar to Glen's. I take care of all of the classrooms, the technology that goes into the classrooms, any of the upgrades, as well as videotaping everything and anything that occurs throughout the law school. Today we're going to be talking to you about the future of video recording. And this is very exciting, and I'm very excited there's so many people here because this is a great opportunity to have a real roundtable forum about what you guys are doing. And a lot of you, things that we're touching upon today, you're already achieving. You're already experimenting with, and actually cross. It'd be wonderful to hear about what you're accomplishing and you know, what we can do to make what we're discussing up here. We're going to display some projects as well, even better. We're going to touch upon a lot of technology that's available today that can help you go tapeless, or at least assist in going tapeless and speeding up your encoding process, speeding up your capturing or transferring to the computer. We're also going to talk about the stuff that's down the road, stuff that's a little bit out of reach of our budgets right now, but will directly impact where we're going in the next 3 to 5 years. So, what are the highlights for today? We are going to be looking at miniDV versus HDD, which hard drive disk. We're also going to take a look versus DVD versus solid state media. We're going to look at the advantages, disadvantages of each, and actually the pros and cons of working together with those two formats. Like I mentioned before, we're going to take a look at some of the portable units out there that you can use to record directly to disk as an accessory to tape. We're going to look at some tapeless video camcorders, those that do not include any legacy drives of any kind, but record to solid-state media. And we'll take a look at some software solutions that you can set up on laptops, such as Media Encoder, which is happening right now. We'll also cover some examples, Washburn University, and also at Cornell University, we took our Trial Advocacy project completely online this year, and without any tape whatsoever, so we'll take a look at that. And then we're going to have some discussion. I really think that'll be the meat of this, hearing what everybody else is doing. I think there's 2 up there. And,
Before we go on, we were kind of curious about where everyone stood as far as their own technology. Does anyone here still use VHS video recording? That's good. So you're going to learn a little bit today. How many of you are doing streaming video at your schools? And how about video editing? Thank you very much.
A little background at Cornell Law School. We pretty much record about 45 to 60 archival events per semester. In the sense that these are events that I record on the tape once and I can't touch. You know, they're going to be put somewhere safe and eventually encoded online in some kind of library. We do 15 to 20 one-time recordings, such as if a student is sick and needs a class recorded. And these, generally, if we use tape for these, we reuse the tape again. So they kind of get recycled. Recordings last on average an hour and a half to 2 hours, which is terrible. Because there are limitations to tape. As Elmer was saying before, we can't really go over too much because we've only got 60 minutes of tape on this camera right here. 40% are streamed. We use a flash communication server, I should say. And 60% are converted directly to DVD and handed off to professors or students.
At Washburn, we have pretty much the same, very similar situation. Although we pretty much stream everything that we do. We use Windows Media instead of Flash, and we do a few DVDs and still a few VHS tapes, depending on what's convenient.
All right, let's jump in. miniDV, fantastic format. It's really revolutionized the way you and I work with computers in terms of editing video, getting that video onto the computer. Advantages: size. You can slip it right in your pocket. You can bring it to lunch with you. It doesn't really weigh you down too much. Excellent video and sound quality over video. Supported by a wide range of video editors. Pretty much every video editor. I'm sorry, I think I took it.
Some disadvantages: there's a recording limit. If you buy the expensive tapes that cost about $8 each, the maximum you can get is 120 minutes, and that's relatively low quality. If it's a special event that's really high quality, you don't want to read the tapes because sometimes you do get some artifacts on the tapes. And of course, miniDV cameras can wear out. And unfortunately, miniDV players are generally not available or very expensive. I've seen them for $800 to $1,500, and usually, we play our miniDVs into the computer straight from the camera instead of a miniDV player. And then the big drawback with miniDV is that there's a lot of, if it takes an hour to record an event, it takes an hour to play it into the computer. So that's a drawback.
For graduation at Cornell this year, we had 3 cameras taking various angles for the DVD that we made. And graduation lasted 2 hours. So that's 6 hours of time that I wasted, put it into the computer when I could have been doing something else. So that is one limitation. The purists will argue, however, that it's a great opportunity to review your video, which is great for those that actually aren't at the event, but I was there and pretty much saw everything again. So you can go both ways there. Direct to disk, hard drive disk. Which one did you want to? Okay, advantage, great. So, okay, we're moving into some different areas here. This has been around for a little bit, but some of the portable units that are popping up now are a lot more efficient at capturing. So what am I talking about? All right, so from FireWire directly to these hard disk units, it's a time saver. The information gets encoded directly onto the hard drive. You plug that hard drive into your computer. It shows up as an actual drive on the screen. Double click, and you just drag and drop your files directly over. Start editing, go for it. You avoid capture altogether. Another great, you're not limited by time. These hard disk units can allow for up to 6 hours in SP, not LP. So for a lot of the symposiums that I know, I struggle with many tapes, you could literally just have one of these units hooked up and recording for 6 hours. Capturing various formats. Mac uses .mov. Windows uses .avi. You can switch between them depending on where you know you're going to be capturing. You can use it over and over again. Right? Unlike tape, you won't have any artifacts. No wear and tear on the camera heads. There's nothing really moving at all on the camera except when you press that zoom button. It's going right directly to the hard disk. And direct to DVD, some of the units that are out there as well allow instant review with your DVD discs that you just finalize directly in the units.
Some disadvantages: hard drives eventually do go out. You're going to need to keep a backup whenever you do this. The units themselves are about $1,000, which is kind of how you look at it. It might be expensive, but it's a big time saver. So eventually, any money you spend on them would be recouped. Files are created in 2 gigabyte chunks, so if you're doing any video editing, you're going to need to merge them together. And you have to deal with extra cables. The unit itself is an extra, it's not real big, but it's an extra thing to lug on.
So he mentioned backup. The most practical thing right now, and probably the most common sense, and what these guys are doing actually right here, is also to use a tape. Okay, well, I'm kind of contradicting myself here, but the thing is that you get the benefits of both worlds here. Tape can serve as a backup, can also serve as an excellent archive. You record, you've got your unit that you can just take directly to the computer, but then you also have this tape that you can just take and put into your archives as well. There have been And once again, the tape you can reuse again for disposable filming, which I have experience with using both formats. Disadvantages, adding devices, obviously. You've got a bunch more stuff to look at here and keep track of. Is it recording? Okay, is the tape going as well? All right. And also, cables can get loose. All right, firewire cables can come loose, so that's great. I've heard of experiences in the field where people have a hard disk unit recording, and it will come loose, and they won't realize it till the end, but they have that tape backup just in case. Cameras in standby mode can turn off, so if you don't hit record on your camera and it knows that there's a tape in there, it will go into standby mode even though it's recording to the hard disk unit. So it's best to always remember to record to both.
One thing about the standby mode, incidentally, if you want to do without a tape, you can just take the tape out of a camcorder and it won't shut off after 5 minutes or whatever. It won't shut off at standby. But one problem with that is that, and you need to check this, is that some camcorders will flash on the little screen, it'll say no tape. Well, that'll end up with some brands on your recording. So you need to check your individual camera and find out what it's going to do.
That was a Sanyo?
The Sanyo did that.
I haven't experienced that with the Sonys yet, but yeah, you'll see the little blinking yellow thing, and I guess sometimes you'll see it actually on the actual recording. So that's really good. Great. Okay, let's take a look at some of the stuff that's out there. This is really cool stuff. One product called the MCE QuickStream. All right, and just to show you real quick size, this guy gets mounted right on top of the camera, and the FireWire goes right down into the FireWire input. All right. And it's available in a variety of configurations, 1.5 hour, 3 hour, all the way up to 6 hour. And it records, like I mentioned before, in various formats. And actually soon it will also have the ability with firmware upgrade to record to HD, which, I don't know, if any of you using HD, I mean, God bless you, that's awesome. We just have to put money in for that. Continuously records up to 6 seconds worth of footage in standby mode. I don't know how many of you get the camera set up and you're anticipating it, but the person actually beats you to the punch and starts, and it kind of you lose the beginning of a presentation. This will record 6 seconds automatically in its buffer, so you're always guaranteed to get that shot. We'll record even while continuously changing tapes. Many of the symposiums that I do, there's like a 10-second gap, and there's some times where I have to stop the tape, get a new one, put it in. So this nicely keeps it running. It responds to the record button on the camera. All right, so it is like using a tape. You don't have to hit 2 things at once. Only weighs 7 ounces. Price ranges $5.99 for 1.5 hour up to $9.99.
One thing to note on these also is that according to the instructions, the battery's only good for an hour and a half. So even though the recording time goes up to 6 hours, you're going to have to be plugged in if you're going to go with 6 hours on.
Right. Another thing too, you can also buy accessories for a lot of these. This is an older Sony unit. This is about 2 years old. It records 3 hours of video. Okay. And you can plug this guy in, or it also has an adapter here that you can simply take and use lithium, the Sony lithium batteries, and then I can get about 400 minutes out of this in a portable fashion. A lot of what we do, we're usually close to an outlet. We're not outside, so it's not that big of a deal. But it is nice to have in case you do go somewhere where power is an issue. Similar product. Some claim it's more professional. Some people think it's of higher quality. But really, both can't stop. Available in different time configurations. Not as many as the QuickStream. 3 hour, 6 hour. Records in all major formats. This one is doing the 1080i 720p. It still does the buffer of 6 seconds. Same thing pretty much as the QuickStream. A little bit of a different device.
This is the DV Direct from Sony. It's relatively inexpensive. It's only $300. It records DVDs on the fly. If you need to produce quick DVDs that are not edited, this is your best solution. You plug it in, put a DVD in it. It takes maybe 10 seconds to recognize the DVD, and then you can start recording from there. And when you shut it off, you can shut it off and restart it several times, and then at the end you have to finalize, which takes about 2 minutes. And then you've got a DVD that's ready for distribution. It's very good for that. But if you want to take that DVD and then stream it or anything like that, that's possibly going to take you some time because you end up having to rip the DVD, and a lot of encoding goes on and it can take you all day.
The big thing about this one too is it takes the dual layer disc, so you can get a lot of time recorded onto these.
12 hours.
12 hours in this LP, which I'm pretty sure what that looks like. So, moving on to the tapeless camcorders. What we're going to show you are models that are at the prosumer level, and then all the way up to we can't afford. First one here is the Sony DVD 403, which is their latest DVD camcorder. Some of you may be experimenting with these. This utilizes the mini-DVD format, the little tiny DVD discs, and it does a variety of those. Recording times last just over 30 minutes in SP, so it's not too great for classes. It kind of falls short, or you need more than one disc. It's got a film and play convenience. You can just review afterwards. You can download it to the computer for editing. Here it's a little difficult. I have no experience. Less quality than DV due to compression, because you are an MPEG too. So for those of you that do have professors or instructors that really want quality preserved, this may not be the best option. And the price, latest one is $899, but you can find some of the second generation models. I believe this is a third for like $450 or something like that. So this is the JVC. This is brand new. JVC is being heralded for this because this is taking the industry its a bold step. It's a 4 gigabyte micro drive, and it records in MPEG-2 at 8 megabytes per second, which is actually excellent, very good quality. It's higher quality actually than some of the movies you have that you rent from Blockbuster. You can get 60 minutes of recording in DVD quality and 5.1 surround sound and all that jazz. The drive is removable and expandable. So as 8 gigabyte drives, I believe, are hitting the market this summer. They cost about $157 for an additional 4 gigabyte drive. Uses USB 2.0. Cost is about $1,500. A lot of the people that are using these cameras just love shooting and going home and editing. I would imagine they just like the convenience factor. They're not looking for something that they can put on a shelf and look down the road. They're just going to make DVDs. They're actually going to edit on the fly. And you can see how tiny it is too. It's incredibly small. Aha. Now, what is everybody else doing in the major industries? This is the stuff that will have the trickle-down effect. I'll talk about Panasonic. Panasonic, and once again, we've got two different standards going on for two different complete directions. They're using something called P2. Right now, their cameras still have legacy drives. They can still do mini-DV, but they also have 5 slots for these P2 solid-state cards. And they're hot swappable, so you can drop in and take out as they get full. Their 4 gigabyte cards cost $1,700, even though the camera only costs $6 for only 16 minutes of DVC Pro video. So you really need to have a bunch of these on hand. And Panasonic expects in 2007 they'll be up to 128. They'll start to get a lot more affordable, they'll drop, and that's the industry seems to agree on a whole that will happen. Right now, CBS and Fox are adopting this format for all of their recordings. Very interesting. I think as it gets cheaper and as it gets larger, you'll start to see a lot more of this. And actually, I think consumer cameras will start to go this route as well, just like the JVC. And you'll start to have 100 gigabyte flash or SD cards that you can just pop in and then pop into a slot in your computer and drag and drop at affordable prices. Go ahead, talk about the Sony.
The Sony that you see here, big disadvantage with it is that it costs $20,000 and you'll never be able to record it. But the advantage of it is that it records on a relatively cheap media that costs about $30 each. It's a Blu-ray disc, and these discs will last for 30 years. They can be recorded on thousands of times, and basically it depends on what you're doing to determine which one you want to use. If you're going to be doing a lot of recording, the Sony would be the better choice. Yeah,
it becomes relative in terms of price though when you look at the different media and what the cameras cost, etc. But yeah, the Sony likes this Blu-ray format. They provide the drives, then you can just slip the disc in and start doing nonlinear editing. So lots of praise for both formats right now. Let's take a look at some of the software solutions. Microsoft Media Encoder, I'm sure we're all familiar with it. It's happening right now in front of us. And it's free, and that's why probably we're all familiar with it. And it's great, it's easy to use and download and get started with. Plenty of customizable options, obviously all Microsoft related, regarding video, audio and video. It integrates cleanly with the Microsoft Server 2003. So you can set up a laptop with an encoder, have it talk to the server, and just push off right away. Accepts DV input for camcorders, encodes files in real time relatively easily, depending on what computer you have. Cross-platform compatible. There's a media viewer for the Mac. And is there one for Linux? I don't know. Okay, so shaky. All right. It only outputs in WMA, WMV. It's a great tool that you can take with you in the laptop and record directly to. An excellent compression for small file sizes.
It's used for streaming, broadcast, and just capturing.
Right. This is just, yeah. It's a screenshot. Actually, we're going to do a little bit of demo after this. So let's move on. It's got some cool stuff.
All right. I'm going to talk about streaming video. One big problem with streaming video is that you've got a big video that you're trying to fit down the pipe and get to people's homes, and because of that, internet bandwidth is used up, and you end up having to compress it. I'm going to show you first a video that's relatively uncompressed, straight from a compressed example. This is just a video I made of someone in the library. He's basically demonstrating how to use a web page. I captured that using Windows Media Encoder and for the screenshot. And I used just a miniDV camera for the live shot. Basically, the big problem with this, I mean, you can read this, but the big problem is that there's no way that that video is going to go down the internet. Anything that has any text in it is not going to be available from people's homes. If they're writing on a chalkboard, it's not going to be visible. It's just the fine details get lost if you compress it. So we'll go ahead and show you a demonstration of a compressed video. He basically can't read what he's doing at all. And then, yeah, go ahead and go. This one, I came up with some solutions to try to take care of the problem. I used some video editing to zoom in on the part of the page that had the content, and that way, you know, it can be used. In this case, I used Sony Vegas, which has some fantastic tools for zooming in on parts of parts of images and panning around and everything. One thing to point out is that the streaming video that we saw at the end, that was basically the same quality that a webcam puts out. And so one question you might ask is why not use a webcam? They only cost $100. You can plug them into the computer, use Windows Media Encoder, and you end up with a product that is virtually the same quality after compression. So that's a good question. But there's some disadvantages with the webcam as well.
Right, in terms of low light, webcams aren't that great. If you have a low light situation, you're going to see the grain. You're going to see the artifacts there. And so one way you could clean that up is to bring it into an editor and brighten everything up. But that takes a lot of time. What is your time for it?
And some other issues I found with webcams is that the software that comes with the webcams cause more problems than they solve, basically. With this webcam, which is a Logitech Orbital webcam, the software does not put the file where you want it to go. You can't put it on a network where it can be used. It ends up just on the computer that you're using, and you end up having to transfer files. Also, it doesn't put it in the format you want. It just puts it into a couple of formats, MPEG-2 and AVIs. And for streaming, I want everything in WMV file. So the solution to that is to use Windows Media Encoder and just rip it straight to WMV. Also, a last problem that I had with this, which caused me numerous headaches, was the software that came with the Logitech. For some reason, when we were recording over an hour, which would be about a gigabyte, it would just strip the sound off of it. And no reason for it. When we called the manufacturer, they said, "Oh, yeah, that's a problem with our product." They didn't have a solution for us.
That one of the features. Moving on, there's a great software package out there called DV Rack, which pretty much transforms your laptop into this huge multimedia capturing monster. What's great about it is that it'll capture natively. And it'll interact much like those hard drive units that I showed before, where you hit record in the camera and it'll start recording on the actual computer. One of the problems with media encoder is that you have to tell it to record after you hit record or whenever anything begins. This will also do automatic white balance for you, so it'll take the actual video from your camcorder, analyze it, and tell you, okay, adjust this, adjust that, okay, you've got it just right. There's a host of other features. You can do closed captioning. It's got a great field monitor. It's got that 6-second buffer record as well. A lot of people, the misconception with recording to computers is that you really need super fast hard drives, 7200 or 10,000, and really you only need a 4500 speed hard drive. It's really the transfer rates that no one ever talks about. And generally most hard drives are capable of recording DV video at 4500 RPMs. It has a slave mode, recording stops. It works in conjunction with tape, both will record. You can instant review every shot. You can write notes on the fly. Really interesting product. Comes in 2 flavors, one for $99 and one for $295 Pro, which includes like that automatic white balance and a host of other things that come. It may be a little out of our leagues, but we're not making a movie here. But I do. There's some times where the white balance for me is an issue that I find in a lot of my shots, and this would be a great help. So it's pretty cool that you can just use a standard laptop. However, it does run on Windows, and Windows crashes. So it may be a great product, but it is relying on a somewhat okay OS.
I'd also like to point out there's lots of software out there that will capture video, but the software that he showed just now is probably one of the best for that purpose. But Pinnacle Studios, Windows Movie Maker, there's a lot of programs that do it, but that one has the most features for that aspect of it. What you see on the screen here is a screenshot from Sony Vegas, and this is the program that I used to make the little video that we saw. This software is for video editing. It's definitely worth the money. The stripped down version that you see here is, I believe it's about $99. You can get a more expensive version for about $600 that you can do audio editing and all the DVD features as well. But the version you see here is strictly for video editing. And in this example, what I did was I simultaneously recorded my coworker talking while using Windows Media Encoder to record the screenshot. I imported both videos onto it, used a splicing feature to cut both strips in the same spot after I lined them up. And the lower track there you see is the audio track. You can actually hear him say how he spelled the word torts, T-O-R-T-S, and you see the little pips on the screen where those letters were coming out. I was able to sync them up by just making sure the pips matched the image of the letters showing up on the other phone plug. And so able to get them synced up that way, and then cut them, put them up together, and it ends up looking pretty flawless. And then, of course, I use this to put titles on, and the pan feature I was discussing. With the pan feature, if you do something like that, of course you need to do that before you compress it, or else you'll end up zooming in on a blurred spot screen.
Cool. Now, going along the theme of the conference here, there is a gentleman out there, and I always browse these forums. This guy didn't want to pay a lot of money to make something happen with a laptop solution. And he wanted to dabble and create something himself. So he went with a low-cost Linux-based solution that provides about 3 hours of recording, which was just limited to the hard drive he had at the time. He went out and bought an old Fujitsu stylistic touchscreen tablet. $175 off eBay, and threw a case in, and got a hard drive enclosure, and used Red Hat, and he used a program called DV Grab, and he had a keyboard emulator, and he was able to put this all together so that he could just hook up his camera and bring it right in to Linux, and do some editing as well in Linux, and then punch it out. He didn't have tapes or anything. Highly customizable. He said cheap laptops were great too. If anyone's interested in trying this out, I have the link to. He wrote down step-by-step instructions. So for those of you that are curious, I would love to do it. Go for it. But this is great. This is the kind of stuff that I love to see. These are pioneers in a sense, making different alternatives for us and cheaper alternatives.
Okay. We're going to talk about some projects that we did at our respective universities regarding video. Both of us did a streaming video project. At Washburn, this is a pretty basic project where we were simply making the videos available to the students. We have VHS camcorders, but you can't buy them anymore, and they're wearing out. And although some of the faculty might prefer them, it's just not an option anymore. And so we decided to come up with a stream video system so that we could put everything on the web and easily make it accessible to the students. And we did this by either recording with miniDV recorders, editing the video, placing it on a server, or using the webcams for a couple of examples. Go ahead. This is our webpage for entering data, metadata about the videos that we have. This was created by Martin Wisniewski at my university. And basically, you enter all the data about the video, and at the bottom of the screen there, you'll notice that there's a field for entering the file location for other files that might be associated with the video, so that when the students are viewing the video, at the same time they can download a PowerPoint or a Word document if they choose to. Usually that doesn't happen. The professors usually don't have something available for me to put there, as in this example. We have two different web pages where the students access the videos. One page requires a security login, the other page does not. If there's a public speaker that comes to Washburn, we put it on the unrestricted page, and if there's like a classroom presentation, for instance, we'll put it, 6 student or whatever, we'll put it on the restricted page. And this is what the student ends up seeing. All they have to do is come to this web page, perhaps after logging in, and just click on Watch This Recording. Windows Media Player automatically opens up on the screen, and they can start watching the recording. One problem that everyone's going to have with this is that not all students have good internet connections or even good computers at home. And so you'll get a lot of complaints from students that are trying to watch streaming videos through a telephone modem, 56K. It's just not going to happen. So I spent a lot of time telling them what they can't do.
Trial advocacy. I don't know how many of you have as much fun with trial advocacy as I do. What it is exactly is we have about 64 students or so that learn to work in a courtroom and do actual cases and get up. They attend one class per week, and then at the end of that week, they divide up into about 8 classes, about 8 students in it or so. And they get up and they give presentations based on the cases that they're learning that week. And we film those presentations, and then they're reviewed by the adjuncts that are in charge of each of those classes. So it's traditionally been VHS. We would film on the VHS, and then the students would take their tapes and review them and take them back to the adjuncts then on the review sessions, which happened Monday after that Friday. However, Cornell University Law School, at least, last year decided we're just going to go all digital, no more VHS. We want to bump up the quality, and we want to make things easier. And we wanted to improve dissemination of video, have it available much more quicker, not just to the students, but to actually the adjuncts as well. So we wanted something for Trial Ed that we could have the instant review qualities of VHS, because VHS is very practical. I mean, it works great. You put it in, you record, and then you drop it into a VCR. That's fantastic. So we didn't want something that would create a lot more work than what was necessary. And we wanted it to be easily communicated to our student workers as well. I have about, at peak, 14 student workers that assist me with the semester, with events and so forth, as they happen. And during Trial Advocacy, I've got about 8 or 9 of them each Friday. So our possible solutions, one was, okay, let's record just directly onto miniDV. We had just bought about 8 DV cameras, and let's just record onto that. And then we're like, okay, well, we're limited to 60 minutes of DV tape, and then we're going to have DV players everywhere, and the students are only going to be able to access them at certain times a day, and it just didn't work for us, what we wanted to do. We could record onto miniDVD, which was cool. I mean, that would give them the 10 minutes that they needed, but the media for miniDVD is a little bit more expensive than VHS. And finalization times, you would have a whole line of students at the end of class waiting to finalize each 2-minute DVD tape, or this. And the last solution was the capturing code on the fly. And that's exactly what we did. We decided to use Microsoft Media Encoder. And we built cabinets with flat panel monitor and wireless keyboard and all that jazz, with a FireWire cable extending out from behind the cabinet. Inside the cabinet is the computer. And what we decided to do is a small file size, about 60 megabytes for about 10 minutes. At 764 kilobytes per second. Very good quality, perfect for what they wanted. And the professor, first of all, the professor is really gung-ho about this, and that's huge. I'm sure some of you know. If the professor or the faculty member isn't willing to participate, it makes things a lot more difficult. But we showed him a quick demo, and he was like, let's try it, let's go for it. It ties directly into the professor's Blackboard site, in the sense that students go to the Blackboard site, and then they click on an external link, which would take them to the server where the files are held. Students can only review his or her folders, all right, so they can't go in and critique other people's videos. That's a big privacy issue. Greater access, adjuncts then from their law firms or from their homes could then review the students' videos before actually getting to the classroom, which proved a lot more greater efficiency, greater feedback for the students. We did have a tape backup, even though we were recording directly to disk. This was a just in case the student was dragging a file and put it in the recycle bin or lost it. They lost them sometimes. So this way we could go back to the tape and retrieve that information. Each classroom then, what the great part about this, we got dual purpose. We suddenly had more technology classrooms in classrooms that previously had nothing. So each classroom got a screen, a projector, and a computer directly connected to the internet with PowerPoint. The projector and screen were just taken out of the cabinet and set up. So let's see. This is a picture of our capture cabinet. The monitor arm extends at about 22 inches or so, and this is for professors if they want to drag down and just use the monitor, not the actual projector. And it was also for our people who are filming, because sometimes the students would rearrange the classrooms in a way that they couldn't see what the encoding was doing. And so you can pull this around and set up your camera this way, or you can pull it over here and set up your camera this way. It would be very useful. Wireless keyboard and mouse, bring that in there. So the capture process, I just want to take you through what exactly happens. And it's very easy, it's very efficient. Student worker simply logs into the computer and sets up the camera. And once the FireWire is plugged into the camera, they just simply hit record on the tape. And what we were using, classes last for about 2 hours. So we were using the 2-hour LP tapes. And they would just hit record on the tape and then go ahead and control the rest of the session through Media Encoder. And for individual students, a student would get up, the person would type in their net ID and the date, and then they'd hit record, And they'd sit back while everything encodes, and then they would hit stop when the student was done, and that file would automatically place locally on the hard drive in a folder. And then they repeat the process for the next student. And after class, a shortcut to the server is on the desktop, and they just double-click on that, and there are each of the students' folders by NetID. And they open up the video folder, and they just drag the name of the file by the person's NetID into the name of that person's folder. Drag and drop, it takes 2 minutes. And then instantly the files are available, so a student can go right down and take a look at how they did. We don't have to do anything. That's it. Then the only thing is that Monday nights, we have the review process. We would simply take out the projector, and the adjuncts would come in, and they would log on to Blackboard as well and go through the professor's site. And their logon, however, would enable them to see the entire file structure, so that they can just simply click on each student's folder, take a look at the corresponding file, double-click, and since it's over the LAN, progressive download happens very quickly, and it's instant review. It works great, which was surprising, because usually this stuff doesn't, and we were expecting mass trauma. The computer never crashed, which was amazing. We did lose some files sometimes, but we had to tape it back up. The adjuncts actually liked it, which is so great. They liked the ability to easily pause, move back and forth, more so than VHS. They liked the big screen. They liked being able to review the information anywhere and help the student out at any time. And it increased the technology options for the rest of the faculty not even involved in Trial Ad, because they now had these technology cabinets in each room. And it was great archiving for the students. They could just throw a whole semester's worth of their videos on a disk. And in total, it only took up 35 gigabytes of space on our server. And I'd show you an example at least of the students, but it got erased while they were redoing our server. But they didn't need it anyways, thankfully. But the professor as well also had his classes all media encoded each week, so that a student, if they missed it, they could just double-click and go grab that in the specific folder. So that's the end of our talk. Now let's talk a little bit out here. Questions. Were you guys doing something similar? Is anyone doing similar stuff to this at all? Do you encode your classes?
Actually, just supposed to start. That's what I was hired for. So it can't happen.
No, but on purpose, yes.
So it's starting streaming locally out of our line outside our line.
Yeah, true.
We do streaming of all the makeup classes. We don't do makeup classes for individual students. There's just too many of them, and they like to see the class too much. But if there's like a makeup class, we actually do use a net cam for makeup classes only. Not for like symposiums or anything where it actually want decent quality, but most of the students are playing solitaire while they're listening to makeup anyways. So the video, it looks good enough when you get the camera up close, and we just hook it up to a laptop with a net cam and have a wireless mic. They roll around, and it seems to work really well. We can just
Are you using encoder approach?
yeah, we have the encoder, and then we just hook it up to like not wireless, but ground LAN connection, and then it's on the network on the Blackboard side. Really easy.
Yeah.
Now, on this sort of system, do you guys have to walk into each room and control the camera, or do you have a central way of controlling it?
Right. I do need student workers to man the camera. The big reason behind that, I mean, the future that I see at Cornell Law School, we're actually going to be redoing our law school in the next couple of years, would be to have a camera in each classroom on the wall that has pan-tilt capabilities and run cable from all of these different rooms to one centralized location. I think Seattle actually was doing this last year. Yeah, and do exactly that and see everything. That's fantastic. Right now, because the students do get up and approach the witness and come back and forth, we require students there to pan and move around and such. So unfortunately, right now we need people to be there, warm bodies, but in the future.
Mark Holmes from Washburn. Obviously, we're really, really happy with Glen. He's just been a wonderkid. It's done tremendous things. As I plow through the mountain of video data that Glen is so wondrously putting on our servers, and I just try to look at the stuff. My biggest concern is typically we haven't done a very effective job yet of translating the knowledge of how to talk, how to present in front of a camera yet to our users. They're great folks. They're tremendous advocates who've been doing this for years, and somehow getting them to know that you really can't pace, or maybe you shouldn't pace, or you should look at the camera occasionally. That's a tough sell. And I haven't located to date anyway a good kind of curriculum or core list I can kind of nag them about. I posted on Technologist a while back kind of a plea to track down something, and John did give me something that was helpful. But is anybody else struggling with this? How do you teach these great teachers how to perform?
Well, I don't have the real answer, but I have another comment. But I will say to that at least in my experience, what you really need to capture effectively is sound. And so if they need to pace back and forth, why? Now that doesn't answer everything. Some people use whiteboard. But I wanted to speak to the question that you started with. How do you solve the problem of medium? And you said that your law school is being redone. At Duke, we've been very fortunate to have a great investment in technology. But I would just speak to one thing, which is we have a control room that was built last summer after we had everybody out. We have a brand new control room. It's wonderful. It brings together 7 of our classrooms. But the really great thing is with the press of these little touchscreen press drive, we can stream out to VHS, DVD recorder, DV deck, streaming PC. So that one answer is if you can control the stream and in real time, you can do a lot of this work that is otherwise serial. And so we're very careful to put titles up, lower third marking the speakers. So at the end of a 1.5-hour session, we've got everything that we need. We're done with that almost.
That's nice. That's really nice. Cool. Thank you. Awesome.
We're hoping to someday have a control room ourselves. Not quite there yet. Are there any questions?
What kind of buy-in do you have your deans and the upper people, so that you can present your information to the faculty forum and have them either adopt it or criticize it, and then maybe address the teaching style? I mean, at Washburn, how does that politically happen before you can?
The deans are very supportive, but I'm generally doing a lot of one-on-one with the professors. More than, I send out emails and things like that. I get very good support from the deans of the university.
But I mean, are they telling this faculty member to spend some time with it, or do you go and knock on the door and say you need some help with it?
I generally knock on the door.
When this happened, initially the dean was very concerned precisely about that, and we were putting on quality. But as it became clear we could really do a quality production and work with folks, he really came on board. So, but I agree, there's an extraordinary evolutionary process to kind of go through to get a conference.
Yeah, and the 2 ingredients that people often forget is the quality of lighting in the room where he's going to present. Oh, I can use this chalk and write on this board, and then suddenly he walks out of camera, or he walks out of lighting, or he's just not wearing his mic, or he forgets to turn his mic on, like that. All these production things that,
There's a lot of, I want the professors to feel comfortable presenting to the class the way they want to present. And if it's just, a 6-student kind of situation, I think generally they're a lot more comfortable walking around the class, and it's going to be the 6th student that misses seeing them generally. With the more formal presentations that are more important to record, we've generally been very, very fortunate with speakers performing for the camera the way they're supposed to.
I think microphones are a big issue. Nobody uses it.
Yeah, right.
They don't.
I mean,
The wireless mics are there, they don't really pick them up. We tried to solve that by using high quality directional mics on our cameras.
yeah, but you get this vacuous kind of.
You're right. And it doesn't solve everything, but it does improve it.
Yeah.
At least the directional, it's not picking up from what's above as much as it's from what's coming this way. So you do get keyboards clicking. But yeah, that's tough. And I think it would be great want to have some kind of literature available, that people get them to read at least, or at least something that we could follow to develop some kind of training for the professors. Each of them has their own stuff. Yes, Greg?
I wanted to ask a question about streaming versus downloading, because there's a lot of downloading. There's an option to set up a media file, audio or video, or even if you just click on MP3 on a website, it will kind of progressively download, and as soon as enough of it's downloaded, you can start listening to the whole thing. Did you think about that as a solution too? We use Apache, and we don't have Windows media streaming servers available and that kind of thing, and so I was just going to ask about that.
Progressively, we didn't want to do it streaming, because our network administrator was just terribly worried about how much stress that would put on our actual server.
Isn't it the same amount? Isn't an hour of video the same amount of data, whether it's streamed or downloaded?
It's a good question, and you may be right. I have no idea.
It's on the kind of convenience down. Yeah, but you can live with that.
Right. Okay.
But also, if you do it progressive, then you can scrub it much quicker and easier than the stream.
That's true.
From an educational point of view, frustrating.
It's also more, there's some question, it's more difficult for the students to save a streaming video, and sometimes we actually don't want them to preserve it on the computer. We want them to view it, and then when I get it off the server, they don't see it anymore. And with the way ours is set up, they can't just download it and keep it on the computer for later use.
One of the things I get where I'm at is, I don't know if other people get this, is they say that, usually a law school class isn't really worth recording because it's method and it's not, there are some exceptions if you have a speaker coming in or if it's this particular course is introductory lecture or whatever. There are other people in that moment too.
From your students, they say?
No, this is from
really, those are the clients.
Some professors really want their stuff recorded, and some of them don't. It's up to them.
I'm curious to see how many law schools are recording classes for 6 students. That seems like a nightmare.
Yes.
Also, especially
We used to do those.
It has to be emergencies, actually, for us. It's not because there's things.
I mean, at Columbia, I require that people, that the faculty member trickles down. A student can't just knock on the door and say, my roommate's sick today, can you record his class? I mean, because I want to keep the feedback going through the faculty member and ultimately to his dean to know that what resources we're using. But I mean, tons of students come in, I've got to go to this job interview next week, and I'm not going to be here, or it's Rosh Hashanah coming up. Can you record a class? And we do say no is not in our vocabulary. We do try to accommodate everyone, but the fact of the matter is that I insist, and Brian Donnelly, my boss, concurs that as long as we have the use of the resources, it has to come down from the top so everybody has a metric of what's being done. And I think that works.
Permission, we have the students give permission from the professor first before they can even ask us. But, I mean, one horror story, last November, we had almost the entire 1Ls go down to D.C. for the election. They wanted all their classes recorded. Yeah. And the associate dean said yes. And I went, oh my God. And so we, for like 4 days, running around every single classroom, setting up cameras and coding to WMA and making sure that they get online and it's nuts, but it does happen, right?
We require that, at least personally, I have to get an email from the professor saying that he wants it done. Yeah. And if he feels like the speech is important enough, that the 6 students should be able to see it, then that's good enough for me.
Just a quick question. Do each of you post-produce a lot or little?
I do quite a bit.
Yeah, I do quite a bit on G5. I would say mainly towards the end of spring semester more than anything for graduation. And we have a lot of faculty members involved with creating heritage projects for old videos that we used to have. And they're putting together some DVDs, Peter Martinez, for kind of like a History Channel thing, remembering Cornell. So we are doing some of that. In the back?
Do you see yourself moving any other format besides MPV, MOVs, and
JPEGs, such as Flash, as you had up there at the beginning, and I'm just interested, because I've learned with Macromedia and Flash, and everything they have going on, they got a lot of new software out there that looks really interesting, particularly when it comes to having text and instructional videos and the movies themselves. Flash provides a wealth of information to merge them in their entirety and have them streamable and download them. You have your content that you can allow to be up, not be up, how you want it sent out, and I'm just interested in that.
Yeah, the format was decided upon before I got there, but it's a fantastic format. And I should say that in terms of video quality, they're all really the same. You know, your Beatles, your Windows Media.
My question wasn't about quality.
But is it the software, right? So yes, you can push a lot more down the pipeline, I would say, in terms of integration into HTML. And Flash has a lot of great features where you can have different text come up, and you can have Flash paper coincide with a PowerPoint presentation then. Very versatile, really cool. You can do, I believe, some of that stuff with Reel, where you can have slideshows that have little markers and so forth, like chapter markers and stuff will pop up. But I think the reason why our web designer went with Flash is so that he can integrate it much more cleanly into the overall presentation of the web.
You had explained about Washington University.
Yeah.
Really evaluating, with that real, at WD, we've done, and all of them, all of the above. I mean, you can export just about anything, sort of, from a web sense, what might be easier than anything you're looking at.
Yeah, no, it works great. It really does. The integration side, I don't see anything else.
Right now, we're still really on VHS, and we're getting ready to switch.
Yep.
At Cornell, what exactly did you have to do? Right now, we have computers and projectors and all that in our classrooms, but to get it to record digitally, what all did you have to buy and to get that whole process to work?
To move completely digitally, we had to install, first of all, DVD players in all of our classrooms. Some of them did not have that. This summer, we're also going to put in DVD recorders, because right now we just have VHS recorders. And from that point on, really, it was just, we bought a bunch of direct DVD decks. We bought a bunch of Panasonic decks. Nothing that's portable, like what Glen was talking about. And I can give you the information on those, although I think they increased generation-wise. They got better, cheaper. And for that, pretty much I just take them the DV tape and plug a FireWire in and record directly to the DVD. And then they can play it in any classroom around the building, take it home. They play as plus and minus R. You can choose which you want to record to. That's pretty much all we had to do. Really, it's buying the cameras and then buying the decks and your digital and having software to edit. Sure. I mean, so that you can take you can do VHS. There's RCA jacks and so forth.
And you use the DV rack? Is that software that you guys use?
I'm not using DV rack right now.
What do you guys use?
Well, to capture, we're just using DV tape, and also Glen just purchased 3 of the quick streams that you saw up there. They're not in yet.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be purchasing those guys as well. This thing. What else am I talking about? Yeah, we just usually generally use the DV tape, and if we're going to do streaming of any kind, then we'll use a media encoder just on the laptop.
How much time would you guys say you spend editing? Or who does the editing?
At Washburn, I do the editing. Depending on the complexity of the project, I could spend quite a bit of time, hours doing editing on a single tape. But for the most part, it's just putting a title on the beginning of something, cutting off the bad parts, and that doesn't take much of my personal time, but it does take a lot of computer time. And rendering something that you've edited could take all day.
Very similar. I'd say that we like to put titles in the front of our DVD discs. We're going to get a lot more advanced with that. There's a lot of stuff that we were doing previously, and this is just the teething process for going digital. We would just put the tapes out there and print directly onto the disc. But we find that we'd like to get a lot more like putting overlays. Who's talking? Who is this person? Especially when you've got a whole bunch of people sitting. So I find that at least with this will speed up that process dramatically, and I can just print the tape, print the DVD, and have something a little bit more professional out there that when we hand off to the speakers, especially if they're from out of town, a little bit more representative of what we want to achieve.
What's the average bit rate that you use for different audiences? For example, University of Language School. We do for the audience, for anybody that's on our network, we use around 1.4 megabits, and we do all audience on the same file. So that way, we can also stream it. What are the averages of the bit rates that you guys are using?
For streaming?
Yeah, for streaming and internal, or is it the same?
Yeah, we pretty much keep it the same, except on our website for the public. Okay? So if you go to our website, you see one of our videos, especially prospective students.
Right.
And then we bring things down. I'm trying to think what he's got out there. Varying from all the way to 500 kilobits per second down to your modem users, 128. Obviously, it gets grainy, but they can hear just fine. For internally, and also people can get it from the outside, we use generally with Flash, and it comes out clean and beautiful, just about 424 kilobits per second, and it's clear. It's 320 by 240, but the audio is 128, and then add on to that the video, and about 300.
We generally use 512, and for the internal use, maybe 1.4.
One thing people argue with Flash is, as I mentioned before, is that the compression, they like the compression. It's much greater than they claim than media encoder in the field. But really, I'm open to all this moment, so I'm not going to say what we're doing. But it is very clean at that resolution or bit rate. Cool. Guys, thank you.